Sorry about that. So that was chapter 2, and this is the continuation. Um, Chapter 3, we talked about punishment and sentencing. So the purposes of punishment in the law, of course, we want to, there's retribution, what we call just desserts. We want to also make sure that victims of crime are made whole. That's what we call restitution. Then you also want to restore sometimes the actual offender themselves, why they commit the crime. We want to fix them and make them better so they won't recidivize. So we want to create recidivism. I mean, we want to kill recidivism as well. That's the purpose of punishment. Also, we want to serve as a deterrent to others, to that person that committed the crime, so they won't recidivize, and to others that may think about committing the crime and say, this is why you shouldn't do it. So then from there we start jumping to a little bit of meat to determine to actually talk about the definition of crimes themselves. We talked about the main parts of each crime. The first part is the actus reus. We talked about that in chapter 4. The actus reus being the criminal act. There must be a criminal act or culpable omission. Now, culpability means guilt. So that means an act or a guilty or a guilty failure to act. When I say culpable omission, what that means is guilty failure to act. That means if you have a duty and you're supposed to act. So if you put someone in a perilous situation, you may have a duty to help get them out. You can't just watch them die, right? And this is when we talk about homicides. Um, Sometimes you may even have a contractual or a familial duty because you might be either a lifeguard, so you're under contract to go save people in the water. You can't just fail to do so and say, I'm not going to jump in and try because I don't like that person. You got to do it. Failure to do so could be a homicide. That means you failed to go save that person from drowning. Or it may be a familial relationship, like a parent and a child. A parent, in some situations, has a duty to jump in and act and try to save their child. So that's what we call the act. We know what acts are. When if it's a murder, you pull out a gun, you kill somebody. That's the act, the killing of someone. But it's also that culpable omission or that guilty inaction or guilty failure to act that can also get you in trouble. And of course, acts and culpable omissions have to be voluntary, and meaning that you do them at your own volition. It can't be something you do while you sleep. Or you can't sleepwalk and do it. You can't be under a spell. Or not that this is rational. Um, but the act has to be voluntary. It can't be something that you're not doing at your own volition. So that's actus reus. Then we moved on to chapter, I believe, 5. Talked about mens rea. So a crime is built of a criminal act that is accompanied by a mens rea or a mental state. The four principal mental states that we talked about purposeful, meaning you do something on purpose, or we also say intentional. So purposeful or intentional, that means you do something with the purpose that something's going to result. Then we move down a notch and we have knowingly. Um, Even you may not be acting on purpose, like I'm going to make this happen, but you're acting knowing that there's a probability that it's probably going to happen. So I know this is going to lead to this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Then we have recklessness right under that, and that's when you're doing something dangerous and you know that there is a risk of danger, but you don't care and you do it anyway. Then at the bottom you have negligence. Negligence is when there is a risk, but you are too stupid or you don't realize that the risk is there and you act and someone gets hurt, but all you had to do is pay attention. So those are the 4 levels of mens rea. So if you commit a crime if you commit a criminal act with any one of those 4 levels of mens rea, then that is a crime. It's an act with a mental state, and it must be concurrent. So at the time you committed the act, contemporaneously with the act, there must have been the mental state. Then we talked about causation. So you have certain types of crimes that actually cause a damage, like homicides. And homicides, what is caused is a death. So not only does there have to be an actus reus and a mens reus, but that act that was taken has to actually be the cause of the death. That's when we're talking about homicides, right? So, in some situations, someone can take an act and they can do it with a mens rea, but the damage that was caused may not actually be caused by their action. There may have been an intervening cause, or something may have intervened. Yes, I purposely tried to run you off the road on your bicycle, and you swerved. But once you swerved, um, you landed in a ditch, and there was a ditch full of poisonous snakes, and they bit you and you died. In that situation, um, there's an intervening cause of your death. Like, in other words, there may be a but for cause, and we're going to talk about causation, and you're going to need to think about this um, when it comes to homicides, and because there are two levels of causation. There's but for. That's what we call factual or but for cause. So in that example where I run someone off the road, yes, my actions did put them in that situation. So I may be the but for cause, but to actually be the complete cause, and for me to be criminally responsible for a person's harm or death, I can't just be the but for cause. I also have to be the legal cause or proximate cause. What's that mean? Proximate cause means that there was no intervening outside cause that came in and actually caused the death. So yes, I purposely ran this person off the road. And if I ran the person off the road and they fell off a cliff and died, then of course I am the but for cause, and I'm the proximate cause. There was nothing intervening that caused the death. But if I run the person off the road and they swerve and they go off the road, um, and then a bear attacks them out of nowhere, I didn't cause the death. That they were mauled by a bear. So that's an example of how I can be the but for cause, meaning I put them in that situation, but there was an unforeseeable thing that happened that actually killed them. So that means I'm not um, that means I'm not the total cause, so I can't be criminally liable for that person's death. Um, so then you also have it. Let's say I do stab or shoot someone or hurt someone, put them in a hospital. Once they get in the hospital, some type of grave mistake was made by the physicians, and that mistake, that malpractice, caused the death of someone, of this person. Um, Now, it is foreseeable that certain mistakes can happen in a hospital, so I can be the but for cause and the proximate cause if a person, um, in a normal surgery to repair what I did to them was hurt. You could argue that, hey, I'm the but for and the proximate cause, even if the doctors made a mistake. But if the doctors make a mistake, like, I hit a person over the head, and it's going to require some type of surgery to fix their skull, or to fix them, but the doctors make a mistake and actually do open heart surgery instead because they had the wrong paperwork. Then that is unforeseeable. That is far fetched. That means I'm not going to be the legal approximate cause of that person's death. That's an intervening cause. It's not foreseeable. So it's all about foreseeability. Um, Parties to crime and vicarious liability. So we essentially talked about in modern law, I believe now we call them. Oh yeah. We talked about accomplices and accessories. So you have the principal, the person that's committing the crime. Then you have accomplices; those are people that are in the crime with him, or maybe even part of conspiracy with him. And then you have what we call accessories after the fact; those people that help and aid in this person not being caught. So levels of criminal. We also talked about vicarious liability, being held responsible for the acts of another. And of course, that also applies with corporate liability. Sometimes corporations can be held responsible for the actions of their employees. Um, and same thing with parents as well. Sometimes they can be held responsible for the actions of their children. Chapter 7. We talked about the inchoate or incomplete, or what we call the unfinished crimes. Um, so there's a part of these crimes where the full crime doesn't have to be committed for these crimes, for you to be guilty of these crimes. And those three crimes are attempt, conspiracy, and solicitation. Attempt is nothing more than you taking a considerable amount of steps towards the commission of a crime, and for some reason you weren't able to complete the crime. So you were trying to kill a person. You bought the gun. You were waiting at the house, and you were gonna kill them, but they never showed up like you thought they would. Yeah, you didn't kill them, but you could be guilty of attempt, just by those actions. Or the person was there. You shot the gun, but you missed and you didn't kill them. That doesn't mean that wasn't an attempted murder. Um, so then you have conspiracy. Conspiracy is nothing more than an agreement between two or more people to commit a crime. The crime of conspiracy is complete as soon as there's an agreement to commit the crime, and there's steps taken in furtherance, a significant amount of steps taken in furtherance to completing that crime. So three people sit down and say we're going to rob a bank. They draw out the plan, and then they take steps towards committing the crime. They start, and even if something happens, the bank is closed that day, they can't get in. There still is enough for a conspiracy. So you don't have to go all the way through with actually robbing the bank. All you needed for a conspiracy was an agreement and steps in furtherance of committing a crime. Then we have solicitation. Solicitation is when you try to talk someone else into committing a crime. So I say, hey, will you kill my wife for me? I'll give you $10,000. That right there, even though the person did not kill my wife, um, just me soliciting them, offering to pay them money and trying to coerce them to commit the crime is solicitation. I don't know, everyone's what's the Netflix show that's kind of a craze right now is Tiger King, where this guy, of course it has I think it's like 5 or 6 episodes, but it talks about this guy at the end that has competition in the tiger ownership or zoo world, and hates this lady, and he's charged with soliciting someone to he actually takes a hit out on this lady, or they say that he's accused of taking a hit out on this lady. So just him soliciting or saying, hey, can you kill this lady for me, here's some money, go do it, that's solicitation. And the lady was not killed. Nothing happened. But just the solicitation alone is all you need. Solicitation, and that doesn't even necessarily have to be a step in furtherance of committing a crime. So the person that's solicited doesn't have to go even try. It's just the fact that that there's either a monetary exchange or some type of solicitation for me to get you to commit a crime for me. That's solicitation. Then we talked about the defenses, justifications, and excuses. Justifications, the justification in a nutshell means yes, I did it, but I was justified, and um, because I was justified, I can't be found legally guilty. So there's an old adage. It says, just because you did it doesn't mean you're guilty. And that's true, because guilt is a legal term. It's a legal term. It means you're criminally culpable or responsible for a crime in a court of law. Um, Doing it factually is, you can do something, but you may not necessarily be legally responsible for it because there may be a justification. So the number one justification is self-defense. Someone pulls a gun out of me to kill me, I draw my gun and I shoot and I kill them. Yes, I did kill them, but I killed them in self-defense, so I'm justified. Those are the justifications. So the chapter talks about certain justifications, self-defense, defense of others, stuff of that nature. Then we moved on to excuses in the next chapter. Excuses are kind of are defenses like justifications, but it's different. An excuse says, yes, I did it, but I didn't have the mental capacity to know that I was doing it. In other words, I didn't know right from wrong, or I didn't understand what was going on. So the number one excuse would be insanity. So in other words, a crime was committed, a wrong was done here, but I didn't know. I had no idea that I did it because I'm insane. The voices in my head told me to do it, or I don't understand right from wrong. So those are excuses, and we talk about voluntary and involuntary intoxication. What that means is if you get yourself drunk, voluntary intoxication, you're not going to be excused from certain crimes. Now, you will be excused from what we call specific intent crimes. Those are crimes with dual intents, like burglary. Burglary is the unlawful breaking and entering, the unlawful and purposeful breaking and entering the dwelling place of another with the intent to commit a felony therein. So there are two, there are two mens reas there. Um, there are two levels of two intent, what we call dual intent or dual mens rea. There's the um there's the purposeful act of breaking or and entering, and then there's the along with that there's the second intent or to commit a felony once you get in there. So there's dual intent. So if there's a crime that has this what we call a more specified or dual intent, then you can use voluntary intoxication as a defense. But if it's a general intent crime like assault or even let's say murder, first degree murder, you do something on you intentionally kill someone. There's only one mens rea and one intent. Um, in that situation, voluntary intoxication cannot be used as an excuse. But involuntary intoxication, that means someone intoxicated you, you didn't know it, they put a pill in your drink and or slipped you a Mickey or a roofie, and you woke up not knowing you killed 8 people. In that situation, what happens is you're treated just like what you're treated based upon the insanity or the incapacitation rule that applies in your state. So we have the right from wrong test. Um, we have the uncontrollable impulse test. We have the Durham product test. You have different tests that apply, and that Durham is not the county or the area that's named after the case. Um, so if you're involuntary intoxicated, in other words, someone involuntarily drugged you, in that situation, then now you're treated just as if you're insane. So you get to apply the insanity rule in your state as an excuse. From there, of course, we had midterm spring break came back. We talked about sexual misconduct, assault, battery, kidnapping, and false imprisonment. So we talked about rape, assault and battery, kidnapping, and false imprisonment. So that was an interesting chapter. We talked about some interesting things. It always gets a little rough and rugged and real when we talk about rape and sexual assault. And we talked about how rape at common law was more about the protection of a man's interest and ownership interest in a woman. Hold one moment. Sorry, y'all. So we talked about that, and we talked about how now it's transition where rape at common law you could only be rape was only done could be committed the victim of a rape could only be a woman, but it's transition where rape can you can know rape victims can be men as well, and it's more wide open because now you have sexual assault. So those things that maybe fall below the actual rape or the carnal knowledge or of a woman, but they are sexual you know interventions or violations of the body, you can be found guilty of those and be a sex offender. Talked about that in that chapter. Then we moved on to homicide. In other words, in short, it's the unlawful killing of another, and it's done with one of the mens rea. So, if you kill someone unlawfully, you do it with premeditation and deliberation, on purpose. That is first degree murder. So that's the highest level of murder. Then we step down to second degree murder, where you kill someone and you did it purposely, but you didn't have that premeditation and planning and deliberation. So that's second degree murder. Then we move down to killing someone recklessly. In other words, you committed some dangerous act um, that you know or should have known would have caused harm to someone, or you do something. I'm sorry, you do something. No, I skipped knowingly. You do something knowing that it's likely to cause something that's going to happen. You do that, and then from there, it causes a death. In that situation, um, Yeah, in that situation, that would be second degree, or what we call depraved, maybe a little bit lower, what we call depraved heart murder. Then now you have reckless, where there's some type of risk you take, dangerous risk you take, and you know about the risk, you know it might happen, but you don't care, you proceed anyway. That situation, that can be some level of manslaughter. Now we have a couple levels of manslaughter. We have voluntary, um, that's where you well, we have involuntary, where you're just doing something reckless and it causes death. Then we have voluntary, where you are essentially, you kill someone and you do it on purpose, but there was some type of adequate provocation that drives you to doing something in the heat of passion. So you walk in on your spouse, not your girlfriend, doesn't count with your girlfriend or boyfriend, can't kill nobody over someone you're not married to. But you walk in on your spouse getting busy with someone else and you kill it, and then that in the heat of passion, right then and there, you kill them. Legally, that has been deemed to be adequate provocation. But you have to do it right then. You can't go think about it, come back next week, find the person, do a drive by. Then it's no that point is no longer manslaughter. It's going to be more akin to first or second degree murder. Then you have a negligent homicide. Negligent homicide is when you're doing something negligently. You're taking a risk that you don't know about. You don't realize that other people are in danger, but you do it, and someone gets hurt, so you have to be held accountable. So it's an accident, but you have to be held accountable. So we talked about that. So that's homicide. Talked about burglary, trespass, arson, and mischief. Those are crimes against habitation. So of course, burglary, that protects the home. You don't want nobody breaking in your house. You don't want nobody trespassing in or around your home. You also don't want them burning it down or damaging it. Then we talked about crimes against personal property. That's when we talk about larceny and theft and stuff of that nature. Then we talked about white collar crime, which is stuff like securities fraud, insider trading, and certain computer crimes. You know, now of course now we're in a computer age where people are stealing people. People can take your whole identity. Um, then we talked about crimes against public order and morality. These are what we call sometimes the victimless crimes. In other words, nobody's getting hurt by it. Who cares? Your ordinances, your loitering, your music being too loud. What else? Prostitution. Nobody cares. And if you're not the prostitute or the what do you call the trick? Who cares? I don't have anything to do with that. They're not hurting me. But so that's usually the criticism of crimes like that. So we talked about that, and that was it. That covered all the chapters and everything we talked about this semester. What I will say about the final exam, um, the final exam is 40 questions, each worth 1 point towards your final grade, and there's an additional extra credit question that is worth an additional 5 points, and that 5 points can apply anywhere across semester. So if you missed an assignment or you didn't have your book, some of that nature, then you can at that point that 5 points can go to fill in for something else. So if you do perfect on the 40 questions and you get the 5 points, that 5 points can help you out across the whole semester. So it's not just for this exam. I apply my extra credit over the whole semester. Um, Let me see what else. Okay, so 40 questions, all multiple choice. And like I said, I told you where I get my questions from. Let me see if I can bring this close enough for you. You're probably not gonna be able to see it. Can you see it? www.sagepub.com/Lippman um CCL, the number 2 and E. What that means is Lippman Contemporary Criminal Law Second Edition. If you go to that website, log on, click on the student portal or the student tab, and you can do a review for every chapter. Do a review for every chapter, and at the end of the review, you can actually also go in and do practice questions for every chapter. You can print them out, do whatever you do, and figure out what the right and wrong answer is. You get it right or wrong, you go back and review, and it'll give you that. If you do that for all 15, I think it's 15 chapters in this book, that is exactly where I got my questions from that website. So if you just go and do that, work real hard and do that, then by the time you get to the actual exam, Those are the now. I'm not telling you which questions I'm using because you're talking about a test bank of over a question bank of over 150 to 200 questions. Because some chapters have 15, some have 10 questions. So you're talking close to you're talking about 150 or more questions I could have chosen from. So I'm not telling you what 40 questions I chose out of that 150. It's up to you to do the questions, and you'll see a repeat, and you know the answer. So haze yourself, not don't haze me. So do that, and that's how you can prepare for my multiple choice exam. The extra credit question is a goofball question, has nothing to do. It's just me kind of throwing you guys a bone. Now, of course, I don't have proctoring software. I don't use that. So honestly, it is technically it is an online exam. So yeah, you could try your best to have your book in front of you. You're gonna have 3 hours to complete it. So 3 hours is way and was more than enough time to complete 40 questions, 40 multiple choice questions. It may not be enough time if you don't know anything. You can't flip. You shouldn't have to flip to the book for every question I ask on the exam. Um, and if you just do the questions on the website, you don't have to use the book at all. You use the questions you already have. But you. So if you do that, you should score well on my exam. I'm not trying to hide the ball or trick you. I want you to use your book because it's gonna require that you go in there and get the knowledge. So I don't have a problem with that. I'm not proctoring the exam. Um, so with that said, I'm honored to have had the opportunity to teach you guys this semester. You guys were pretty good students. I know we're dealing with this COVID-19 mess, and I know I've been clearing my throat. I don't got it. I just got done running. So I'm good. I'm healthy. But definitely you guys need to stay locked in and stay focused. For you seniors, don't give up hope. You're gonna be all right. For you people that the sophomores, juniors, whatever, you're gonna still be in school next year. Don't don't take your eyes off the prize because of this situation. Now I know you've had to have an abrupt change in the way we've been learning, but don't let that discourage you. It's been big. It's been a change for me as well. I've taught online classes, but when I teach online classes, I go into it knowing it's an online class and I prepare. I've never been in a situation where I've started an in-person class and it adjusted to being an online class in the middle of the semester. So it's been hard for me as well. So, um, just stay on top of things. Stay on top of your blackboard for all your classes. This isn't just me talking about my classes. This is me talking about how you need to approach all your classes. Stay in contact with your professors. Stay on your email in Blackboard. Check for announcements. Because remember, we changed the syllabus in this class. If you weren't paying attention, you didn't get it. Um, because I felt like we would have had all these class periods where no one, I would have had a guest, so that would have been like kind of dead time. So I'm like, we might as well jump to the chase and get the semester done and do the exam at this point, because we don't have any in person class. So so yeah, by that time I taught all the content, so I done the downloading. So it's just time for you guys to give it back to me. So just do your assignments in all classes. Stay on top of the syllabus or syllabi for your classes, and also contact your professors. Email them. We had believe me, we're duty bound to stay accessible and answer emails. So do that. You can be successful this semester, in all semesters. Just do the work. This is weird for everybody. You're not alone in this. We want you to do well. So that being said, Godspeed and everyone stay healthy. Bye bye.